Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all again. So I'm going to, some of you will have been in the presentation I gave yesterday, which was really looking at what we've been doing over the last year. So today's presentation is more forward-looking. And as the title suggests, it's about securing the future of radio. I think the first thing to say is, or the first question to ask is, well, why should anybody care? And the headline is this: radio plays a really important role in the lives of European citizens. 85% of Europeans listen to radio every week. 90% of car buyers say that radio should be standard in every vehicle. And radio is the medium most trusted by European citizens for 12 years in a row. Okay, so radio is important, and it's very important that obviously we in this room understand that, but it's very important that policymakers understand that as well. But the world is changing. New digital services are being launched, consumer tastes are changing, and competition is being transformed. So it's absolutely essential that we protect the core benefits of broadcast radio. And what are those core benefits? It's free to air, it's universal, and it's reliable in emergencies. And DAB+ is key to securing that future. So why DAB+? I'm going to start off with what you might call the glamorous bit, the listeners and the broadcaster benefits. So what are they? Well, first of all, it's increased choice. On average, you get 7 times as many services, national services, on DAB or DAB+, as you get on FM. So massive increase in choice. And just to give you an idea of what this means for the broadcasters, I mean, this is the classic example. Absolute was 1 station on analog, now is 10. And in fact, this week have launched 3 other stations. But what they've managed to do with this portfolio is grow their audience from 1.7 million listeners a week to 5.1 million. So they've tripled the size of their audience over 10 years. Another strategy that we're seeing people do is extending their reach. So LBC, a commercial radio station based in London, was on air for 40 years and had an audience of just over 1 million. They then went national, and they've got an audience of 3.3 million. So they have tripled their size of the audience. Funnily enough, exactly the same growth as Absolute have achieved. And then DAB offers an enhanced experience, now playing information, station logos, and voice control. So these are all added benefits that are available through DAB. And some people say, well, it's all very well having this choice, but do people really care? Well, the reality is this: 22 million people in the UK listen to stations that they couldn't listen to if they only had analog radio. So, if you ask people, am I happy with my FM? Typically they will say yes. But if you give them the choice, they will follow and listen to those stations. And that is in turn driving revenue growth. And over the last 8 years, you can see that the UK market, in a time when online advertising has been growing massively, has secured growth of 34%. So the choice is leading to greater listener numbers. Those greater listener numbers are leading to more revenues. So I said that was sort of the fun bit. That's the upside. That's the delighting the listeners, the opportunity to make more money. But there's other side to the argument as well. And this is, people who've heard me speak before, this is the bit which is a little bit different. So economics, environment, and emergencies, 3 key things to focus on. And very simply, I mean, if there's going to be one slide that you take a photograph of, it's probably this one. So the economics, the costs of distribution on DAB+ are lower than FM. The environmental costs are much lower. The energy requirements are much less. And as I mentioned before, the resilience in time of emergencies, especially out of home. So let's quickly look at some of the cost arguments. On average, it's 80% cheaper or lower cost to broadcast on FM for a single service. It's 80% cheaper on DAB or DAB+. That's the current situation. The next wave is small-scale DAB. And this is multiplexes based on open source software. And these are designed for smaller stations to lower the barrier for entry for them to launch on DAB. First adopted in the UK, Switzerland, and Denmark. It's good for the small stations. Potentially, it's good for new markets that are yet to launch DAB+. Cost is obviously a major consideration. With small-scale DAB, there's an opportunity really to transform the whole ecosystem. Then we have the environmental argument. So DAB+ is the green solution. So DAB+ consumes significantly less energy than FM. The BBC study published 2 years ago now, DAB was 33% more efficient than FM, and that was taking into account both the transmission costs and the transmission energy consumption and the receiver energy consumption. And then there was a German study in Bavaria by BLM, produced very similar results. And there's links to both of those research at the bottom of this slide. And energy consumption is becoming an increasingly important issue. Obviously, it was important before we had the Ukraine crisis, but now energy costs are even higher than they were before. And this is a major factor in driving switchover decisions. So cost was a major factor in the Norwegian decision in 2017. Similarly for the Swiss in 2024, once you've got enough listening on DAB, or indeed any digital platform, if that's enough to compensate for the number of people who are left on FM, then there's an opportunity to switch off. So those are the national switch-offs. But what we're seeing, and I think we'll probably see more of, are these partial switch-offs. So Germany, you probably can't see it, but that is Deutschland Radio. They are switching off a whole load of transmitters in different parts of the country. So it's not a total switch off, but where it's more cost effective, they're switching off. We have a similar situation in South Tyrol in Italy, and RTL in France will be switching off long wave in January of next year. And I think the reality is that we're going to see more and more of this partial switching off as broadcasters realize that the costs are not sustainable. And then finally, we have emergencies. So DAB+ is resilient. I mean, it's a key feature of broadcast radio, whether it's digital or analog. And clearly, this is in a world where everything is going IP. And I mean, the simple headline is that mobile services are less robust. And in fact, talking to people yesterday, not only are they less robust because people, the systems get overloaded, but actually if it's a terrorist attack, they very often get switched off. So broadcast really needs to be at the core of any emergency warning system. And this is exactly what's being proposed in Germany. So they had floods, very serious floods last year. Over 120 people lost their lives. And following that, the German authorities and the broadcasters got together basically to see, is there a role for DAB+ in the national emergency warning ecosystem? And the short answer is that they think that there is. So they've put together a very detailed proposal, and this is involving all the stakeholders in Germany, the broadcasters, the manufacturers, the network operators. But they don't want to do it on their own. And so they've come to WorldDAB, to the technical committee, and the idea is that the technical committee will look at this proposal and see which bits of it, if any, need to be refined to make it acceptable for international markets. The key thing is to build that international alignment. So that is what we're working on. And this resilience of DAB+ has been recognized by the European Union. Most of you will be familiar with the European Electronic Communications Code, and which basically requires all new car radios to have digital terrestrial. And the impact of that has been really significant. I picked out 7 countries here, some of the larger European markets. And you can see that over 90%, in all of those countries, over 90% of new cars now come with DAB+ as standard. And what's interesting about this, for me, is that the top row are countries which have already got established DAB+ services. But the bottom row are countries which have only partially launched, or indeed in the case of Spain, hardly launched at all. And what this means is that it's never been easier for new countries to launch because there is now a ready-made installed base of receivers, which will be growing automatically without the consumers having to do anything. So, to summarize, DAB+ is firmly established in Europe. Strong benefits for listeners and for broadcasters, number one. Number two, economics, environment, and emergencies provide an extra rationale for DAB+. And when we're engaging with policymakers, this is really, really important. And then thirdly, and finally, DAB+ is standard in new cars. So now is the time to secure the future of radio. Thank you very much.